Welcome to Happiness Week. We are going to blow your mind in a happy way. And, it's Happiness Week every week because I get to sit next to you.
Aww.
And I get to wake up and hang out with my best friend. So
we have a good life.
A big part of happiness, are you taking care of the relationships that you have? So let's start off with a review from the website. I am so grateful for these. This is from Marilyn. I am one of the thousands or more who appreciate your podcast.
Aww.
Thank you for saying that.
That's so sweet.
Thank you for sharing so openly about your health challenges and anxiety issues. It does give hope and incentive to make healthy choices. I deal with anxiety too. Also, I think you and Dr. Amen are modeling a beautiful and healthy relationship. You both have your different ways of thinking and feeling. Oh, they're so different. Yet there is so much love. Just wanted to thank you. You're helping me so much. When there are too many ants in my head, I listen to Dr. Amen to put a sane voice in my head. It's sort of my goal to be the little voice that helps you do the right
I'm not
things.
sure sane is the word, but positive.
No, I took the MMPI.
Oh, dear Lord.
It said I was completely normal.
Do you know what it said about me?
Tell me.
Brutally honest.
Oh, well, that's
I
certainly
mean,
true.
I'm paraphrasing.
I also had a similar Catholic upbringing, so can really relate. Thank you. Marilyn, thank you so much.
That was great.
We are grateful to everyone who listens. And so when we think about happiness, there are a number of components that go to that. So let's talk about the brain.
Yeah, I want to talk about
happiness.
So the first thing I want to know is, what is it?
So let's talk about the brain.
Right.
And then let's talk about the mind. And let's talk about relationships.
Right. But let's start with the science.
So the science of happiness.
Like, what is happiness?
So it's different, I hear, than joy. It's that sense of positive contentment.
So happiness is more of like what like a daily feeling compared to joy, which is what? More
It's like that burst
of
intensity.
Okay.
Of intense feeling. Happiness is positive contentment.
Okay.
You feel positive, but also content. So joy is like that jolt of dopamine that we've talked about. And so what gives you that sense of positive contentment?
So I have all kinds of questions and all kinds of things going on in my head. So I want to know part of it. I want to know the science, like what's the chemistry of happiness? But I also want to know then what is the thought process of happiness, right? So I want to talk about both of those.
So we're going to talk about brain first. So that's the chemistry.
Right.
So are your neurons firing in a healthy way? And so if you had to narrow it down, so your mood is often associated with your deep limbic brain. And that includes your amygdala, your hippocampus, your thalamus. So they're structures deep in your brain. And when they work too hard, it's often associated with depression. Mm-hmm. And keeping them sort of soothed and calm, yet working hard enough is really...
So maybe meditation can help with that.
So meditation actually activates your frontal lobes and can calm down your limbic or emotional brain.
So that's why sometimes when I meditate, I actually feel this like joy feeling.
There's some chemistry involved.
Right.
And you have to have enough of the neurotransmitters. So it's serotonin and dopamine.
And those have to be balanced,
norepinephrine and GABA. And they have to be balanced in order for you to feel right.
Right.
Which means you need to get the right food. And nutrients can be helpful as well.
We write about that a lot in Brainware's Way. We talk about nutrients.
And I write about it a lot Feel Better Fast and
Okay.
Make It Last. And in Feel Better Fast, I talk about bright minds. So if you want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it if it's headed to the dark place, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. And we're not going to go over all of them. But for example, B is for blood flow. Low blood flow, especially to the left front side of your brain, is associated with depression in right-handed people. And so I always tell people, if you're going to fall out of a second-story window, fall on your right side, because the right side tends to be the more anxious, fearful, mournful side, and damaging the right side actually goes along with being silly.
How funny.
There's actually a term for
Is that
it.
why my mom started laughing? Like, she doesn't stop laughing ever since she hit her head.
So there's a term for it. It's called Witzelsuch, for people who had right frontal lobe tumors, and it means addicted to bad jokes.
Oh, how funny.
So some of the comedians probably were dropped on their head
That's
if
so
they were
funny.
not a good comedian, I suppose.
So we've talked about neurotransmitters,
Blood flow.
blood flow.
So anything that lowers blood flow will actually lower your happiness.
And I assume PTSD can trigger that part of the limbic brain.
PTSD can trigger off the limbic brain to work too hard.
Okay. What
But-
about hormones?
Well,
Because just look at a woman in menopause.
uh,
Nothing makes her happy.
are you speaking from personal experience?
Well,
or-
fortunately, not quite yet, but I think I'm headed that way.
So inflammation is another major cause of unhappiness. And people have no idea about that.
Yeah.
And 97% of the population is low in omega-3 fatty acids, one of the major causes of high inflammation, along with gut health problems. So if your gut's not
Yeah,
right,
that's for
your
sure.
brain's not
For sure.
right, and so
'Cause you won't even produce enough
you're not
serotonin.
happy.
Right. You won't produce enough serotonin.
Well, the gut produces serotonin for your body. It produces 90% of it, but it doesn't do it for your brain. So it's a little bit of a misnomer. But you need the building blocks. But when your body's inflamed because you have leaky gut, which we've talked about a number of times, you're not going to be happy.
Right.
And when you're in pain, you're not going to be happy. Now, 30% of happiness is associated with G, genetics. And so, I tend to have a happy mom, and I tend to have a grouchy but reasonably happy dad. And so I've never suffered with depression. On your dad's side, there's serious depression. And so we have a tendency, but you can magnify it by how you live and what you do.
Mm-hmm.
H is head trauma. You hurt the left front side of your head. That's why you should never let children hit soccer balls with their head or engage in risks that are high concussion activities. It's a major cause of depression, anxiety attacks, suicide, unhappiness. Toxins, the toxins people put on their bodies. So there are brain reasons.
But on top of that, as somebody who's been through some of these challenges, things like thyroid really affect it. It's another hormone.
Well, the neurohormone section,
Right.
That's the N in bright minds. When your thyroid's not right, you're not happy.
Well, and even things as simple as ferritin. If your iron is low, your ferritin, you're going to be exhausted. It's really hard to function normally and have passion if you're exhausted all the time, right? So some simple nutrient, things you can have checked.
And we always say you can't change what you don't measure.
Right.
And ferritin is actually
Vitamin
very
D
important.
as well. All of those things will affect
there's
your.
actually a
So
brand-
we talk about it from the standpoint of affecting weight and your health and your overall, your brain activity, memory, but we haven't really talked about it as far as affecting happiness. It affects happiness
Positive
Right.
contentment.
because it will make you exhausted and tired
And diabetes is also associated with unhappiness. Having hypoglycemia. So if you're someone who gets hangry,
Oh yeah.
you remember Chloe when she was little? So she'd fall asleep often when we were in the car.
And she'd sleep for a long time.
And when we would wake her up.
Oh, dear Lord.
What was it like?
Oh, dear Lord. It was terrible. It was terrible. And we couldn't figure it out at first. But then we started figuring it out because as soon as she would eat something, she'd be happy again. That's how we figured it out. So like she was completely unreasonable.
What would she say? Right when you'd wake her up? Why are you
waking me up? Yeah. Always. Why are you waking me up? But she'd scream it.
Yeah, it was not pleasant.
No.
Do you know anybody that's hangry in your life? I often do a 2-hour glucose tolerance test. So I measure, like you said, one of my celebrity kids kept getting arrested and hasn't been arrested since. And his blood sugar dropped really low. When your blood sugar drops low, not only are you have brain fog,
you make bad decisions.
You're anxious. You make bad decisions, and you're mad, and you're not happy.
Right. So those are a few things. Oh dear, yes.
Is so important.
I am one of those people. If I miss if I get woken up a half an hour early, it's not even just the happiness. I'm just off all day. Am I not? I'm just wonky.
Yeah, no, I don't roll over in the morning and wake you up.
No. It's the difference between
I will not be happy.
No, it's the difference between being really happy and having energy and being like content, or being just like all day just like being off. And it's only a half an hour if I get woken up a half an hour early. It's just the weirdest thing.
I know, but it's this constant conflict in my head. She's so cute. Don't you want to get a kiss?
There shouldn't be a conflict because
now there is no conflict.
There's no conflict.
There's more pain than there is gain. I always say to my patients, do you want short-term pain or long-term pain? Right. And if I wake you up in the morning, it's long-term pain. So I don't. When we come back, we're going to talk about the habits of a happy mind. Welcome back. We're going to talk about the habits of a happy mind. We're in the beginning of Happiness Week. This comment was left on Tana's website, tanaamen.com. I can't begin to tell you how much you and Daniel have literally changed my life. I've always been an overachiever, but I also struggled with depression, and sometimes I just act like a complete recluse. After listening to your podcast religiously, trying to catch up to the current ones in 2018, it occurred to me that I might suffer from ADD. This never once occurred to me because I didn't have the classic symptoms you think of when you think of ADD. Nevertheless, I visited my physician and he was able to determine that I likely did have a form of ADD. He gave me a trial run of Adderall and my life is forever changed. My impulse control is vastly improved. I was able to land my dream job, and everything is just so much clearer. Perhaps the most significant impact on my life is my ability to accept the former instances of abuse in my life and deal with them.
Yeah.
Understanding how they affect my current life, which is pretty perfect, has been so powerful. Your story and how you overcame so much gave me the courage to address my past. More importantly, and I'll tell you why I'm laughing in a little bit. More importantly, it has given me the warrior mentality. I want to be a warrior, not only for my brain, but for my heart, my soul, my family, and all those I care for.
Wow.
You and Daniel have inspired me to be a better person, and for that, I am forever grateful. I intend on visiting one of your clinics in 2019, most likely the Atlanta location, and I am so excited to learn about my brain. I am certain there will be findings that explain even more about my life so far. I thank God for leading me to your podcast and to you and Daniel, you are both such a blessing in my life, and I thank you for the work that you do.
Well, that made me teary.
This is from Lisa.
Speaking of Happiness Week, that was awesome.
That's a habit of happiness.
Wow.
Reading the reviews from the people. You know, we've done more than 300
That
podcasts.
was an awesome testimonial.
So the reason I laughed in the middle of it is I remember that time when we were at Esalen.
You're just really gonna do you see what he does to me? He just like,
and you were so private.
oh, I was no way gonna talk. I had never done that. I had never spoken anything about anything to anyone, and I never was going to.
Because you wanted to show the world
how perfect.
You were perfect.
Yes. I had this perfect wall. Perfect facade. And
you shouldn't have been with a psychiatrist who wanted to climb over
so
the
irritating.
wall and play with you.
No, you're so irritating. Oh, I remember that. And then you just
tell me now, it's 13 years later. Are you happy you climbed over the wall?
You know, I got to tell you, I'm just going to be really honest. When I first said something, like the first time and then even the second time saying something out loud about something painful in my past and just being very raw and very vulnerable, it's a little like popping a boil. There's just a lot of pain and ugliness that comes out and you feel super freaked out and exposed. And like, what the hell did I just do? Like, what? I can't take it back now. Why did I do that? I think I was even kind of mad at you. I was just like, what just happened? That shouldn't have happened. And then all of a sudden there's this just huge sense of relief, like shedding something huge. And then the best part is that all of a sudden you realize people don't like you less, they like you more. Like, you're like, they don't like someone that they think is all buttoned up and like doesn't, well, they know you're not perfect. They just think you're just kind of stuck up and not telling them what's going on with you. So, because no one's perfect. So,
do we like Lady Gaga more?
Oh my gosh.
She came out with her struggles with mental illness.
Yes. And here's the funny thing. I don't even have to like know, agree, like, connect with so many personal, like, nitty-gritty things in her life to just have huge respect for someone's, just that ability and that vulnerability that someone expresses when they give something like that, when they talk about that. Yeah, huge respect for the fact that she does so much for people with mental illness. Yes.
Okay. The habits of happiness. Let's talk about them.
Yep.
What are the mental habits of happiness?
Well, you just touched on one of them. Connection. I used to not connect. I kept myself wall up, disconnected.
You know, that's interesting because the more time people spend connecting on social media, the more depressed they are.
That's not that's different. I think that's different. I'm talking about real being present, connected. Being connected with people, whether it's social group, whether it's church. For me, karate, the people I practice with are amazing.
So
family.
There's something about in-person
yes.
connections or connections on the phone where you're talking to someone as opposed to someone where you're just sharing photos on
And I
Facebook.
also think that
because people just tend to share the perfect pictures.
Right.
And that's not life.
No. And the other thing is connecting in a way when you are helping someone else, there's just something hugely powerful about that. It's okay to need help. It's okay to be helped. We're all in both places. But it's also amazing when you can help someone else. There's a high to that. There's a high to giving and helping others. Talk about happiness.
So one of the habits of happiness is not believing every stupid thing you think.
Oh, for sure.
There's two great quotes. One from our friend Byron Katie. A thought is harmless unless we believe it. Mm-hmm. It's not our thoughts, but the attachment to our thoughts that causes suffering. Attaching to a thought means believing that it's true without inquiring. A belief is a thought that we've been attached to, often for years. This one from Jeffrey Schwartz. Dark thoughts in the mind are not you. but are false messages from the brain. And because you are not your brain, you don't have to listen to them. And of course, we call them ants, automatic negative thoughts, the thoughts that just come into your mind automatically and ruin your day. And we have found one of the habits of happiness is whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, or out of control, write it down and then ask yourself, is it true? Can I absolutely know if it's true? Learning how to talk back to the negative thoughts is one of the habits of happiness. Because if you just let that thought fester, my wife never listens to me, then...
How come you always choose that one?
Because it's just the one that sort of I had, and I was mad at you.
What? How do I not even know this?
No, it's just, I don't know. You were busy and I wanted you to listen and you didn't. And so I had that thought, Tana never listens to me. But I'm disciplined. This is the benefit of being a shrink that actually, that does therapy with patients, is I'm like, well, what would you tell your patient to do? Write it down. Tana never listens to me. And then go, is that true? No, she listens to you all the time.
All the time.
Right? So I don't know if it's where you are in your cycle or you didn't sleep.
Or that moment.
I woke you up early that morning or whatever. But if you don't question your thoughts, you believe them.
Right.
And then you act out of the belief, so I would have given myself permission to be rude to you, to withdraw from you.
And then I would have talked to you more than you would have liked.
But the issue is don't believe every stupid thing you think.
So I'm going to add something.
A habit of happiness.
And another habit of happiness, because I took Byron Katie's 9-day course, and I have to tell you, it was the most irritating thing I've ever done in my life, because you want to talk about something that turns your brain inside out, and really makes you dig into things that are pretty vile. And that you have pretty awful things that thoughts and beliefs, not thoughts, belief systems that you have held. So it's hard. It's a hard class. But one of the things that I really like that's simple, you can take away today, won't take you 9 days, that I love, and it's another habit for happiness, is what other people think of you is none of your business. Because we spend, especially the social media thing, right? We spend so much energy comparing ourselves and worrying and this and that. And what'd they say? When someone says something bad about you, you just go crazy with it. And it can ruin your whole day. And the truth is, what other people say about you is none of your business. And it was just such a freeing thing for me. Because I used to be consumed in my 20s for sure, and probably halfway through my 30s with what people thought about me. And now I just don't care. And it's so great. It's just so great.
And I taught you the 18-40-60 rule. It says when you're 18, you worry about what everybody's thinking of you. And when you're 40, and this happened to you when you were 40, you don't give a damn what anybody else thinks of you.
It really did.
And when you're my age, when you're 60, you realize
they're
one's
not thinking
about you at all.
Right.
Even if you're a public figure, no one's thinking about you at all. They're thinking about their lawn. They're thinking about dessert.
Their butt.
They're thinking about whatever.
Their pictures on Instagram.
All right. And the 2 minutes left. A couple of other habits of happiness. Start every day with today is going to be a great day, because then you're going to begin to train your mind to look for what's right rather than what's wrong. Finish every day with what went well.
And
today.
I'm 5-minute meditation. You don't have to make a big thing out of it. 5-minute meditation. 5-minute meditation. I've got tons of meditations on YouTube. You have meditations. We have them on BrainFit Life. Just learn how to meditate 5 minutes a day. Will change your life.
Habits of happiness. Stay with us. We're going to talk about your relationships.
Welcome back. We are in Happiness Week, and we're going to talk about relationships and happiness next. But first, I want to read this testimonial. This is another one from my website. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts and have enjoyed them immensely. I got your cookbook from the library. So, FYI, you can get the cookbook from the library. So, when people say that things cost too much, I just want to point that out. Got your cookbook from the library and have tried several recipes, which both my son and husband thought they would not like from the description. I chose several I thought they might try. They have not been disappointed yet. I have never felt so successful with anyone's cookbook. Oh, thank you. I'll be purchasing your cookbook soon. Thank you for making healthy foods so delicious. I am forever grateful. You are such an inspiration. Thank you. That makes me so happy. I love that. See, we're talking about happiness. And food is a big component of happiness. So this is good.
And also being purposeful, having something you put a lot of energy into, be enjoyed, and begin to change the health.
Made me so happy last night when you were eating my food and you kept going on and on and on about how much you loved it. So it made me so happy that I made dinner again tonight. It's cooking right now.
So let's talk about happiness and relationships, because one of the things I've seen is one of the quickest ways to be unhappy is to fight with your wife.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Or to have a bad relationship with a coworker. And, it's what I've just seen. People actually get homicidal and suicidal when their relationships go south.
Yeah.
And so, has that ever happened to you, where you've been in a bad relationship? Not that you were homicidal or suicidal.
No, I went through a hard divorce. I mean, a hard divorce, and it's terrible. It's a terrible thing. It's almost crippling at points. It's terrible. It's an awful thing.
And the reason you went through a hard divorce because the relationship was hard.
Really hard. Yeah, it's all about fit.
And sometimes they just don't fit.
Right.
And I think it's okay to say it doesn't fit.
That's one of the things
and be responsible for saying this doesn't fit for me.
It's one of the things that you helped me with, because I had a lot of guilt. Just my personal religious beliefs and whatever. I had a lot of guilt over it. But you really helped me with that. Was rather than the guilt, was really understanding the fit was never going to fit. It was never going to fit. So, and I would have raised a child in that chaotic environment. So,
well, and the research actually shows that it is better for a child to be raised in a divorced family than one that is in chronic conflict.
Right,
and neither are good.
Neither are good.
Neither are good, and we don't recommend that. But we also recommend the truth.
But I do feel like, as far as happiness, speaking of happiness, she is able to have a home where, as a mother, I'm not chronically stressed. I'm not chronically unhappy. So she gets that as an example. She has a loving relationship that is her example now. And even when she did go to her dad's, at least he wasn't fighting with me. So it was not good.
So what are the things our listeners can do today to improve the quality of their relationships and subsequently their happiness?
You want my honest opinion on the first one, the first thing? And I don't know if you're going to agree with me. Take responsibility. It's always going to be the first thing I say. For your health, for your relationships, for everything. Take responsibility. Not blame.
Why wouldn't I agree with you?
I don't know, because I don't know what you're going to say. But my first thing...
I have relating is the mnemonic I have for happiness that I teach my patients. And the R is responsibility.
Oh, well, see, there you go.
So you're responsible.
So, yeah.
It's take 100% responsibility.
Yes.
Now, if at the end of the day, it's not working, it's not working.
You still have to take responsibility.
But what is it I can do today to make my relationship with you, with my employees, with my friends, with my family better?
Right. Responsibility does not mean blame. This is what I mean. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a martyr. It doesn't mean you have to be... It just means own your part, be grounded, be responsible for yourself, and be responsible for doing the right thing. That's responsibility.
So what is it I can do today?
Right.
As soon as you blame someone else for the problems in your life,
right,
you become a victim and you can't change things.
Right.
And
I hate being a victim more than anything on the planet.
Starts with responsibility.
That'd be my first thing.
So I know how to make you smile.
You do.
And I know how to make you crazy mad.
Thank God you don't do that very often.
Now I choose not to.
Right.
Because I want to be happy. Right. But knowing you have some control.
Yeah.
When I see these teenagers that are really struggling with their parents, I often go, what do you do that makes your parents crazy? And they're like, nothing. And, I'll nudge them and they'll tell me all the things they do to make their parents crazy. I said, if that's true, I bet there's things you do that make them happy.
So I'm going to give you an example this morning with a teenager. So this morning, our teenager, as far as teenagers goes, she's an amazing teenager, but she's a teenager and she has her moments. And this morning, for some reason, it's so rare, but she just woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And I don't even know why. Just woke up in a bad mood. And she wasn't being mean. She was just not in a good mood. And I was like, hey, what's wrong? I don't know. Okay. So that could have been an immediate fight, right? If I had pushed her at a time, so my part of being responsible, I could have pushed her into, you need to tell me, you can't act like that. It's just going to cause a fight. So my part of the responsibility was just let her be a teenager and go do your own thing. So I just my part of being responsible is I love you. Have a good morning. And I walked away. And so I went and did my own thing. Her part of being responsible, and she's been getting this information for a while, she went for a run. Okay, she's like me. She uses exercise a lot. She went for a run. She came back. She walks in. I was exercising. I was in the gym. She went for a run and I was in the gym. And she walks in. She has this green mask on her face. And she walks in with her little ponytail and her green mask. And she walks in and she's like, Mommy, I'm sorry. And I'm like, that's her part of being responsible, right? So she did the thing that she knew would sort of set her brain right. And she came in and she apologized.
So if you were like many mothers at that time, you would have felt the disrespect. You would have started raising your voice. You would have guilted
Which was
her.
not going to be helpful.
And it is not a habit of happiness.
It's not only not a habit of happiness, it's not helpful. We all have bad days. Unless she's called me a B word or she did something, she's having a bad day. Leave her alone. Walk away. So as long as she didn't do something blatantly disrespectful, her issue. It's not my issue. I didn't take it personally. So. And then she came in. I'm sorry. I love you.
So sometimes space
Yep.
can be a habit of happiness, not having to deal with everything. And if you feel like you're a person who's gotten no respect because you're a middle child or you're smaller than everyone else.
Are we getting a little personal here?
Then when you feel like someone disrespects you, you overreact. And that's not helpful. That's not a habit of happiness.
See,
a habit of happiness
you're so perfect for me. So it's so funny that you say that.
Taking a breath and go, what's the goal in this relationship? That's a habit of happiness. And we've talked about this a lot. I always have the same goal with you. Kind, caring, loving, supportive relationship. And so, like you said on your MMPI, brutally honest.
Right.
See, whenever my patients tell me that, I'm going,
Rude.
well, that's usually not helpful.
Right.
Because you never want to say everything that goes through your head because there's craziness that happens in everybody's head, right? I filter what I say. Does this get me what I want? Kind, caring, loving, supportive, passionate relationship.
Yeah, but see, I don't want to be that way with everybody. So sometimes it just.
Well, but if you want happiness, which means your marriage is good.
Oh, relationships, absolutely.
Yeah.
People on the freeway, not so much.
Yeah, but they have guns.
So I don't say it to them. I don't say it out loud to them.
So also, this is going to sound counterintuitive. One of the habits of happiness is being assertive.
Oh, absolutely.
But in a firm and kind
There's
way.
a difference between
if you
assertive.
let someone run over
you feel like
so
a victim.
even though you're very assertive, everybody's listened to the podcast. No, you are.
But there's a difference between assertive and aggressive. There's a difference.
Right. And sometimes you walk that line.
It depends. If you're on the freeway with me, it might be different. See, this is what I'm trying to tell you. It depends on who you are. Now, if you walk up and you threaten my child.
If I took the position of never trying to upset you.
Oh, no.
Then I would be miserable.
But I also wouldn't respect you.
And I would also create a problem in our relationship.
And I wouldn't respect you.
Because people don't get this. And relationships are two ways. They have feedback. And so letting someone else dominate you because your anxiety causes you never to speak up for yourself.
But the reality is for I don't know about everybody, but for a lot of people, and I just know this to be true, especially for a lot of women, we might push back. We don't want a doormat. We really don't. Part of what I love about you, I trust that you will protect our family. I trust that you are my partner, not my doormat. So even when you push back a little bit.
Things often go wrong in a relationship. It's a habit of unhappiness, is giving in and never saying what is.
But it's all in how you say it.
So I love that, because I've said that for 40 years to my patients. It's their ways to say things and their ways to say things.
Right.
And so figuring out how to be assertive and effective, firm and kind is a habit of happiness in relationships.
Yep.
So
it's all about how you say it, and you're so good about that.
Stay with us.
I will embrace my many strengths.
I will not be tormented by my past.
I will find the right balance.
I will be calm and courageous.
I will be free. I am not just bipolar.
I am not just autism.
I'm not just depression.
I'm not just ADD.
I am not just anxiety.
I am not just OCD.
I am not just PTSD.
Welcome back. We're in Happiness Week and talking about the habits of happiness. That'll make a great book. One of the things that clearly makes us happy is when you leave reviews. This is from a firm believer all the way. And the title is One of the Only Wars Really Worth Fighting. I so agree with that. I listened to most of the original presentations of The Brain Warrior's Way, which started in the summer, I guess, of 2016, and went through the fall. However, then I had to work, change schedule, and it was hard to fit in all of the remaining ones. I'd listened to the audiobook of Change Your Brain, Change Your Life several times. Thank you. So I didn't feel it a complete loss. What I really like now with the podcast is that they are 15-minute segments of time, rather than 1 hour, giving the meat and potatoes of the presentation, if you will, which is easier to fit into a busy schedule. Thank you for that. I also like that you can pick up and choose a title that is pertinent to what you want or need to hear at any time. Excellent content with abbreviated presentation. Thank you so much. Would like to add retrospectively, months later, I am totally a brain warrior.
Aww.
I'm an RN and am ready to take the next step and sign up for the Brain Warrior, the Brain Health Coaching course. I love that. So thank you so much.
Gail, thank you.
We are in the habits of happiness.
Yes.
And one of the most important strategies you can do that will radically change the trajectory of your life is to rewrite your life story.
I love this. And we've been working really hard with our nieces on this, and actually my sister. And this has been so powerful that they don't have to stay on the same path they've been on that has been so destructive for them, that it's their choice now to decide to rewrite that ending.
So what was your life story when you were a child?
Well, I've told it. It was a mess. I've told it.
But
It
what
was,
were some of the messages that you got as a child?
oh dear. Well, college wasn't really in the cards. Medical school wasn't in the cards at all. And I wanted to go to medical school. And so that kind of, I remember hearing
No,
things
go
about that.
earlier than that. When you were 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, no, those were stories I always heard. School's too expensive. But I would hear things like, so my mom, who worked like repeatedly, I'd hear weird messages. Never depend on a man. So how are you supposed to have like a really good relationship with somebody, right? Never depend on a man to take care of you. So that was one. And she's very successful, by the way. She was a 16-year-old runaway. So if you understand the context, then...
Right, but I'm talking about the messages.
So that's the message, right? So never depend on a man. Then there were chaotic relationships nonstop that went along with that. So that was one of them. Let's see.
So when you were having the anxiety stuff when you were 9, it's people abandon you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought that I couldn't trust anybody. So I just started thinking, I used to visualize what I would do if I found out that my parents were dead. This was pretty horrible, but I would visualize, okay, what would be the first thing I would do? Then what would be the second thing I would do? I would go pack my stuff.
You know, I actually had that same one. So I wonder if it's not an uncommon
Oh, you did?
fear. Yeah.
Oh, weird. Yeah, no, I used to visualize it so that I could survive it because I was so terrified. Yeah. Yeah. There were a lot of weird messages growing up.
Well, and when you're one of 7, it's you're invisible. So that was one of mine, is you're invisible.
Are we talking about messages that other people give you, or just
No.
things you?
The
So
things
ones that I sort of
you
that I
took
took in.
from
Okay, that's different.
The
That is
environment.
different. Yeah, no, I began to quickly, early on, believe that men were not trustworthy. Yeah, no question. That was something I began to believe early on. I also began to believe that you had to fight, like life. You had to fight to survive.
So for those of you listening, I want you to think of when you were young and what was the story you were writing for yourself? What was the beginning of the book?
Yeah, mine was like fight or
And
die,
how
basically.
you began to predict how that book would turn out.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I'm weak, I'm small, I'm insignificant, I'm not important. Because sometimes those early story messages can impact the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to do to end Happiness Week is to get you to rewrite the story.
Yeah.
So how do you want it to be? And does your behavior match the story from your childhood, or does it match your hero's journey?
Well, and sometimes...
Because listening to the reviews that we've done, clearly your journey shifted.
Oh, for
from
sure.
being weak and
Right.
not powerful
Right.
to be a healer and a teacher.
Right. So I also think that, so I grew up in an environment where I was very timid. I was very sort of weak as a child. That's how I felt like I was sort of in the way. So I'd hide, if you will. I would sort of like stay in the shadows. And then out of necessity, wasn't working out so well. So to protect myself, I started learning how to fight back. And then there was this sort of like fight or die type of mentality. But that was too scary to give up, the fight or die thing. But what I did learn how to do in writing my own ending was channel that in a more positive direction. So that's why the warrior mentality, right? So it's not fight or die like in a really negative way, but rather, okay, I channeled with martial arts and with like, okay, warrior mentality. How do warriors, it's prepare, be aware, avoid. That's what you do as a warrior, right? It's not just like charge in, right? And just fight someone because. So it was a much more positive way that I started to channel my energy. It was with intention.
So how can we help people do this for themselves? So one of the exercises
Awareness
I
is
do
one.
with my patients is I actually do sort of a year-by-year history. What were the significant things that happened in your life before you were born that you know about? Year one, all the way through however old you are. And it takes a couple of hours to do. But you really begin to understand why people do what they do. And then we'll continue it on year by year. Well, how do you want your life to be? What are the things you want for yourself? And it's very powerful if you begin to rewrite your story of what you want. Because ultimately, it's up to us, right? I mean, in all movies, there's always twists and turns. There's always going to be twists and turns to your life. But as Tana always says, responsibility doesn't mean the twists and turns are your fault. But it's your ability to respond that decides whether your story turns out awesome or awful.
Right.
And brain warriors are not victims.
Mm-mm.
Brain warriors are victorious. Now, and it doesn't mean brain warriors don't make mistakes. They make mistakes all the time. They just don't make the same ones over and over again because they're paying attention to the mistakes that they make.
Right.
So how do you want your story to turn out?
Well, my story right now is awesome. So I just want it to continue the way it is. And I want you to be in it with me until the end. So I want it to be purposeful and loving and kind. And I want little grandbabies. And I like my life. My life's amazing.
Okay. So what do you have to do? So when you're listening to this, I want you to answer these same questions. What do you have to do to make it that way?
Be loving and kind. Be purposeful, doing what I do with you. Invest in my relationships. I like the question, then what? If I do this, then what?
Does it fit the goal you have with your life?
Right.
That's what the front part of your brain does. It helps you decide if this helps you or will it hurt you.
Right. And that's why even when I'm not feeling well, first thing I did was go get numbers checked and figure out, so because then what? If I don't do this, then what?
So know your story and rewrite it the way you want it to be, and then match your behavior over time to get what you want. Use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com or on our supplements at brainmdhealth.com. Thank you for listening to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. Go to iTunes and leave a review, and you'll automatically be entered into a drawing to get a free signed copy of the Brain Warriors Way and the Brain Warriors Way cookbook we give away every month.